Hey guys, it's Michelle. As you know, I have been kind of preparing to get this going and start this. I'm not sure what platform I'm going to use. I don't know if I'm going to stay with YouTube or if I'm going to go on ahead and do just Facebook Lives. At this moment, I'm just not quite sure on which way that I want to go with this. But there's a lot of things I wanted to talk about, and I feel like I need to reach out to people that I know that I can possibly help if they're in a bad way. And I have a lot of information, and I've been through a lot of things that I think some people could really use some of my experiences and some things that I've been through to maybe help them go through some changes or some situations that they may be going through in life. So, right now, I want to just kind of cover what my plan is and the duration of what I'm going to be talking about through a period of time. I've been told for years from so many different people that, Michelle, you should write a book, you should write a couple of books, you could really, really inspire some people, or at least inform some people on some things that they may not really know about, and give somebody the opportunity of being able to take away from this as a survivor of how to get through some of the toughest times in life. So I wanted to cover surviving abuse of all different kinds, so many different levels of abuse. I was born in Chicago, Illinois, south side of Chicago, Chi-Town. My younger days, my younger life, I was brought up on the north side of Las Vegas. I'm a desert girl at heart. And then we moved to Oregon, and I even went to part-time, high school here in Oregon, and met a lot of really, really great friends that I'm still friends with to this day. So, back and forth to Vegas for a while, and you guys can hear my little holiday, my little doggy whining back there.
There we go. There you go, Mama's baby.
Okay. Anyway, so I wanted to talk a little bit about surviving abuse, all different kinds of abuse. I have my little notes here, and I got on my glasses or I wouldn't be able to see much. My father, his dad was from Romania, and his mom was American English and Irish Gypsy, actually. And that's a whole nother chapter that I'd like to get into as well. My father's family took me from my mother when I was 4 years old. It was called kidnap. It was actually called kidnapping, even though it was from my family. My father's family took me from my mother, and it was in the newspaper and wrote up as a kidnapping, so on and so forth. And it was actually the FBI that had to find me 18 months later and return me back to my mother. And I was 6 years old then, and unfortunately, I've never seen my father or his family, any of my relatives from my gypsy side, ever again. I've grown up to feel, don't get me wrong, my family, my blood family, and my mother's side, they love me, and we're close. We all have our ups and downs, but I have always felt kind of different. I have a tendency to sort of have a strong connection with the bloodline of my gypsy family. And this is my crystal ball, my latest piece that I love. Anyway, I'll try to stay on track. I want to talk to you guys about that. And, this information is going to cover drugs, how I grew up in a drug home. It covers my mom and my stepfather. That's where I get the name Edwards. And I have a sister that's 6 years younger than me. We both have different dads. My father's the gypsy dad. Her father was the Edwards family. And so my family, my mother and her stepfather, when I was returned back to my mother, she was a completely different person, and from what I had remembered. And so there were a lot of drugs involved, fast times in the hippie life, and they were big time drug dealers, and there wasn't too many things back in the day that were actually legal that I remember growing up as a child. So it's gonna cover, drugs, drug abuse, the sales of drugs, drugs that were flown in from India by a man named Harata back at the time, and he'd drive in his little fly in his little private planes and bring in, at the time it was cannabinol and THC, and come from the factory these great big huge balls of paste, and it was gray, and it was like animal tranquilizer. And so I would help as a child to cut it up and bust it up. And we also there were sheets and sheets of LSD, little paper squares, like this little cardboard squares, and they have these little tiny little squares that you peel off, and they were like $3 a hit, and they were stored in the freezer, and they'd have like the Star Trek Enterprise printed on them and things like that, and they were stored in the freezer, and of course I helped with that. And then there was purple microdot and orange barrel sunshine acid, window pane, I mean, you name it. Then the liquid that you would drip on little sugar cubes, and you drop it in your eyes and stuff. And so these are the kind of parents, that I grew up around, right? The stepfather and my mother. And so this is the kind of house, that I grew up in. This is what I came home to. And so there was, just abuse and just craziness and hippie parents. And from what I understand, my mom tells me, though she passed away in 2007, but about how I was a toddler running around at Woodstock, in the mudslides, naked toddler, as a baby. And sometimes I don't know how I really, I don't know how I made it, really, through some of the stuff, but I did. Here I am. My family, were so criminal-minded back at the time, and I'm speaking of my mother, and again, my stepfather, my sister's father. They were constantly, doing like these, almost like these cat burglaries. They would stake out places in Vegas, and they'd watch people for weeks and weeks and months, and then they'd go in and like rob these people and take them for everything. And I even remember, them stealing Christmas trees and Christmas presents and things like that out from underneath people's trees and everything. And that's how we spent our Christmas. Many times I'd be ironing stacks and stacks of money and hiding them under the bed, to again, somebody be incarcerated and every single thing that we have to be taken away from us. And that happened a lot. So anytime we'd get anything material wise, we never knew when we were going to get another pair of pants, or when the electric bill was going to be cut off. I mean, 1 month we could be ironing stacks of money and having helicopters fly above, and we could be the following month be out with my mom on the strip begging to people, begging for money to pay the electric bill. So nothing was consistent. There was no safety at all, in and out of foster homes, in and out of going to my family's homes, my mom's brother and my mom's sisters, and to my mom's mother. And we were always my sister and I were always sort of shifted around through the family. My mom was either in what we call vacation, the psych ward, for a while, or we would end up in foster care for one reason or another, or my mom would be in jail. And so, there were robberies, there were abuse, there was, sometimes we had things, sometimes we didn't. Our electric bill would get shut off. I mean, there'd be times when I would have no school clothes, there'd be times when there'd be no food, there'd be times when my mom would be passed out in the bed for days and days and days. So there's just my third grade, 9 years old, I mean, my mom had been talking about how horrible of a mother she was. And my mom was very, very selfish. nobody else could mess with us, that's for sure. But when it came to my mom, she sure did a number on us. You know, she would protect us from so much, but yet she was the only one really bringing the abuse into the home and around us. But my mother, when I was in third grade, 9 years old, she took a gun, a .22 pistol, and she shot herself in the chest. And I found her, and she, you know, it's something I live with. 9 years old, I just remember being so pissed that, you know, it's like, here I walk into this bloody situation, and she's, you know, got a hole in her chest and an exit wound in her back and blood everywhere. And, you know, I remember actually being such a cold child at the time, where I would just sort of go into survival mode. And I just remember thinking, you know, come on, man, you couldn't even do this right. You know, here I have to clean up your freaking mess. And so, you know, there were stabbings, guns. The ladies in my family are known for bank robberies and home robberies and, you know, you name it. So we were in and out of foster care, as my mom was in and out of prison and jail and in the psych wards. And, you know, then she was wanted, and she was looking at doing some real long, hardcore prison time. And she ended up selling a little house that we had. She had, you know, bought like a home, you know, like I believe like on, you know, the single moms program and stuff, which is how I bought my home. But long story short, I don't want to jump too far ahead. But my mom did own her own little home in Vegas, and like kind of like I think they call them like tract homes now. They're like these little square homes. They're sort of like modules, and they're kind of put together. And I remember that's kind of what it was like. And it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, you know, but it was hers. I mean, she owned it, and there was just my sister and I. So, you know, she was looking at doing some time, and so she sold her house, and she, you know, got a little money out of it, and loaned some chunks of money out to family. And it hurt her pretty bad because, you know, she never received it back, and she needed it for us to come to Oregon and start somewhat of a decent life. And so we moved to Oregon, and we moved in with one of my aunts. And you know, then we started our Oregon life, and I went from there to you know, go to high school in a little teeny tiny town and meet some friends and stuff. And I can talk about, you know, more of that, and how I ended up still being a resident of Oregon. And so these are all the things that I want to cover. And there's just a lot of different areas to cover. And so sort of like this introduction, I want to give you guys a heads up on what all I'm going to be talking about, what all I'm going to be covering. And there's just a lot. And hopefully, you know, I can help somebody and inspire someone. But, you know, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm also doing this for me. I've reached a point where I'm 54 years old today, and I need to heal. It's who I call she, my inner child, and the person that has been abused and neglected and not seen and not heard. But it's time for her. It's time for her. And so I'm going to work on her so that I can continue to do other things in life and heal and move forward in being an animal activist, you know, and try to do things, you know, advocating for animals. And of course, I'm always going to be a parent. So, you know, moving to Oregon, you know, I'll talk to you about what kind of jobs I had, about about running money across the Mexican border. And I'll talk to you about my illegal jobs. I'll talk to you about my legal jobs, my extremely difficult jobs, and how I actually was even going to be a correctional officer for a federal penitentiary in Sheridan, Oregon. I mean, you name it, I've done it. I've covered it. Pretty much, that's how I feel anyway. So in my, you know, middle 20s, I started, I was vice president of a nonprofit, and it was, I'm not going to say the name of it, but it was a nonprofit for low-income people to try to get their pets spayed and neutered for free if they were, if they met the income guidelines to try to keep, pet population down. And so I've always been into animals. I've always been into, sticking up basically for the voiceless and speaking for them. Hold on just a second.
I do not know what is your problem. You can't seem to get comfy, Holiday. This is Miss Holiday. She's Mama's baby.
She is my Shanghai, China cosmetic testing lab survivor. And she came to Oregon with her 2 bonded brothers. Yes, she did. And I also have a dog from the Cambodian dog and cat meat trade. And her name is Miss Justice. She has her own Facebook. And so I'll be talking to you about how I decided to reach out to other countries and started pulling in my furry family members. And actually you can hear one of them in the back barking. That's Jingle. He's my blind testing lab baby. He's in the back barking. In the back bedroom. Yes, they have their own bedrooms. So yeah, so I'm going to try to, stay focused. But as I said, the different kind of jobs that I've had, going to other countries, running money, bartending, cocktailing, doing cashier work, doing volunteer work, doing, nonprofit work for the voiceless, factory working, assembly line working, daycare provider. Not much different from being a bartender either. Let me just let you know. You're 86th. You drink too much and you can't behave. Don't get well with others. Over here, you're doing daycare and it's time out and you bit so and so and you pulled each other's hair. So you're slinging sippy cups and you're slinging cocktails. It really isn't a difference, to be honest with you. They're all children, for the most part. So then it moves on to where my sister ended up becoming beyond heavily into drugs and having 5 children. And the oldest one is my son, the only boy. And then he's the oldest one. And 4 years later, there is the beginning of 4 girls. So all 4 girls are 2 years apart. And so the 5 children were 2 separate adoptions taken from my sister from the state of Oregon. And 2 separate times I stepped in to make a long story short. We'll go into detail on that later, and adopted these children as a single mother. And that's when I began to do daycare because I had to make ends meet, and I couldn't do both. I wasn't 2 parents, so I had to figure out how I was going to make money. How am I going to raise these kids? And what you got from the state is basically to live on, and so that was difficult. They give you just enough to live on, not to thrive on, not to get ahead on, but literally just to live on. And sometimes that's not even enough, and I'm not knocking it. I'm appreciative to whatever we were able to get. I'm not knocking it. It's just that it was not enough money. So I did have to do daycare. And sometimes I would have 17 daycare kids on no school days. And I bought an old convict van from the city, 17-passenger Dodge Ram van. And every single one of those seats would be loaded down with infant seats, toddler seats, you name it. Literally every seat was packed down, especially on no school days. My God, that was some hard work too. So, I wanted to transition the kids home with me. And, that there was just no opportunity for me to go to work. I would have paid everything to daycare. And having the kids, already go through a lot of trauma and then transition into the home with me and then me work outside of the home, that wasn't going to work, nor did I trust anybody. I just did not trust anybody to take care of the kids the way that they needed to be taken care of. So I did daycare for a long time and then, began to work, single parent programs and low income programs. And I saved for years and years and years to put a down payment on a home. And I remember working bartending on the weekends, saving my tips, because the check would come in on the first and you'd have to have that check all 4 weeks until the next check to get through, pay bills and everything, and whatever you made on daycare and whatever you made on tips in the bar, that was your diaper money, that was your gas money, that was your, milk money at the end of the month. That was the way that you were going to make it. And so I'll cover that, and the purchase of the home, and how I got to be where I'm at now in my home. And I do own my home. I've been here basically close to 9, going on 10 years if I'm counting right. So I now have, out of the 5 children, I have my son. He's 25 and he's out of the home, and he owns his own home. And then I have my oldest daughter just finished her junior year at U of O, and my middle daughter just finished her freshman year at OSU. She's going to be a sophomore next year. And then I have a 17-and-a-half-year-old that is finishing up her junior year in high school. And then my youngest daughter is 15-and-a-half, and she is finishing up her freshman year. So I have my 2 daughters still at home, and my other 3 are out of the house. But, I do have my special needs China Lab babies. I have my Cambodian survivor as well. We have a cat, we have a tortoise, and, I keep my, I keep a lot of my, I try to keep some of my family dynamics and some of my relationships and, think personal, because I don't want everything out there on social media. We got to keep some things personal and some things sacred. Yeah, and, when I learned about the dog and cat meat trade of Yulin, China, and then learned about it all across Asia, and I always wonder if I'm saying it right, the Boknal in Korea is massive in size compared to the dog and cat meat trade practices of the Yulin China Festival. Either or, the 2 festivals are the festivals within themselves, but all across Asia, this, dog and cat meat trade and the horrific abuse happens daily, every minute of the day. It's not just narrowed down to a festival or 2. And so when I found out about this, I have to tell you that I was already behind closed doors, very, very depressed, in a lot of pain, considered disabled, going through so many medical issues. I've had 4 massive surgeries in the last 4 years, and then I had medical issues prior to that. A lot of stress, a lot of wear and tear on my body, started really hurting. So when I ran into the specifics of the abuse of the dog and cat meat trade, it devastated my life. What was left of it, it literally devastated it. And so I'll talk about that in detail as well when I get to that. I felt like literally my soul had just been ripped out. I questioned my faith. Not only did I question God, I questioned every single thing when the level of horrific torture and abuse was brought to my attention. So I'll cover that at another point. But yeah, I've got the China babies here, and from here, I need to work on She, which is my inner child that's not been safe, not been taken care of, and not been supported. And so that's what this is about. And moving forward and having adult children and children that are becoming adults, children that are adults, children that have moved out of the home and how that takes on a whole different dynamic and a whole different set of issues and problems and joys and happiness and just the whole transition within itself. And turning 54 today, man, oh man. I remember thinking, good grief, 54 is, decrepit. And here I am, starting a whole new life at 54 years old and starting a whole new chapter and a whole new pathway. And I'm gonna start being, a heavy advocate and activist for the voiceless as much as I possibly can, and reaching out to other opportunities, other platforms, and just seeing where this all ends. And again, as I said, if I can help anybody get through something that they're having a really, really hard time with in life, if I can support or, bring anything to light for someone, I'm here to help. And also, I'm going to be helping myself, and I'm going to be basically putting myself through therapy and reaching out and seeing what is in store for me. What does the horizon have for me? What is the plan? What is the universe going to help me manifest? What is to come? And it's forward from here onto a whole nother level, and I need to reach out and help those that are survivors of abuse of all kinds, and that includes the voiceless. So again, I'm, happy to finally pull this together and attempt to throw myself out there and be vulnerable and, subject to however anyone wants to take this in and receive this. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a journey, and it's going to be one hell of a ride. So if anybody is interested, I will probably be, I'm looking at trying to post a video at least twice a week. And I will be covering everything that I just mentioned, but in more detail, sort of starting from the beginning in detail and moving on up to where I'm at now, and then moving from where I'm at now into what I would like to see happen and what I would like to succeed at within the near future. So anyway, I really appreciate everybody, and, on my Facebook, I've gotten a lot of love and a lot of support, and I just am looking forward to some new chapters in life, and it's gonna be fun. I think it's gonna be one hell of a ride. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting. I can definitely promise you that it is not gonna be boring. There's not gonna be anything boring about this because there's a lot for me to tell. There's a lot for me to cover, and I think that I'm gonna have enough for just about everybody out there to want to be interested in some part of it. If you're not interested in hearing about my activism, you might be interested in hearing about how, I adopted kids by myself. You might be interested in how I did daycare, how I did bartending, how I ran money over the border, how I was looking at becoming a correctional officer, how I, bartended, cocktail waitress. I mean, how I weighed up so much marijuana in the past that the THC and the crystals were so thick on my fingers that I literally had rashes. I mean, it would absorb in my blood. I would be so lit, so just weighing up my little grams, that was also my job forever. So that was 25 years ago. So I think there's a little bit that I have to offer everybody out there that might be interested in how things are going to go. And I think that I'm open to give you guys information, feedback, and we'll just see how it all plays out. But I'm looking forward to it, and I appreciate your guys' time. And as I said, maybe at least 2 videos a week, and we'll go from there and see how it all plays out. But I appreciate your time and thank you very much. And again, I am Michelle from Oregon and I'm covering She. Thank you. Bye-bye.